All right, guys, what's going on? Welcome in. So we have some breaking Jets news coming out here early this morning from Adam Schefter. The New York Jets are expected to interview Aaron Glenn. And of course, Schefter does go on to add that the Bears and the Saints are also expected to request the head coaching interview as well. And then we actually had a follow-up report from Rich Cimini suggesting that Glenn has told his friends that he would be very interested in the Jets job. Aaron Glenn is obviously one of the top head coaching candidates in this cycle, and for good reason, right? I mean, man, he brings a lot of qualities, a lot of positive qualities to the table, to the interview desk, if you will, right? I mean, first off, we're taking a look at how the Lions defense is performing. They're one of the better defenses in football. They're elite in specific areas, one of which is third downs, which is absolutely massive, as we all know. His defenses are tough. They're aggressive. They're physical. Like, we're seeing guys go down with injuries, but they're making it work. They're finding ways to be competitive. They're not really deviating from what they do, and there's 100% buy-in from the roster. One of my favorite things about Aaron Glenn is player development, right? We're seeing all these players hit the Lions, right? Whether they're a first-round pick, whether they're a free agent, whether they're a mid-round pick, whatever the case may be, they come to the Lions, they get better. Hutchinson, Kirby Joseph, Brian Branch, all of these players developing. Anzalone playing the best football he's ever played in his entire career. Zadarius Smith scooped him up, right? Via trade, he's effective. Carlton Davis, one of the better corners in football. I mean, really, throughout his entire Bucks career, hits the Detroit Lions and all of a sudden is having one of the best seasons of his career. These guys are constantly getting better, and that is really, really attractive, right? I love I love the ability to draft and sign players. And we all know, organizationally, front office, coaching staff, fan base, media, these players are not only just going to be put in a position to have success, but also their talents will be maximized over time. And if they don't, it's not an indictment on the coaching staff. It's simply the player just wasn't where he needed to be. A lot of issues with the Saleh, Joe Douglas regime, right? We're signing free agents and there's no plan. They're not getting better. I mean, just take your pick on God. I mean, how many free agents just simply did not work out? Like Corey Davis, Carl Lawson, Dalvin Cook, Adrian Name, all these different guys, right? And then we're not even talking about the draft. I'm not even going to dive into it. There's really no point. They're gone. Out with the old, in with the new. Point is, Aaron Glenn has shown a ton on the defensive side of the football for the Detroit Lions, and it goes beyond just team rankings and stats. There's a real plan there, a real identity there, and I really, really love that. Another great quality that Aaron Glenn brings to the table, he's been around fantastic coaches. Dan Campbell, Sean Payton, Ben Johnson, we'll see what happens with his career. Bill Parcells, obviously, right, going back to his playing days. The coaches in the organizations that Aaron Glenn has been around have all had success. They've all had success, right? Which, again, is I mean, we hear it all the time, right? The Sean McVay coaching tree, the Andy Reid coaching tree. I mean, there's like, it feels like it's just a never-ending list, right? There's always someone off of the Sean McVay coaching tree that's getting interest, or the Kyle Shanahan coaching tree. When it comes to Sean Payton, Dan Campbell, Aaron Glenn is a disciple. And, of course, again, Bill Parcells, he is a disciple of those guys. He's been described as someone who is a leader of men, someone who players love playing for, someone who has players' backs, but is not someone who gets pushed around. Someone who coaches and fans rave about constantly. My best friend's actually a Lions fan, and he does not want to see Aaron Glenn go. He knows it's inevitable at some point, but he really wants to see this group with the Lions win that Super Bowl before, the assistant coaches part ways. In any case, Aaron Glenn is well respected, well liked, and for obvious reasons here. But specifically why he makes sense for the New York Jets, of course we have the obvious connections, right? He played for them. The defense is horrible. You got to imagine he would come in and turn that unit around. But he has direct ties to Mike Tannenbaum. And we know that Mike Tannenbaum is helping, he's assisting Woody Johnson and Chris Johnson in finding the next head coach of this football team. So, with Mike Tannenbaum obviously being a part of the Jets organization when Aaron Glenn was a player for the team, that's one thing. But Mike Tannenbaum actually hired, and this is a point that we've talked about a lot, Tannenbaum has actually hired Glenn in the past. He hired him to his staff as a pro scout back in 2012. So these two guys are familiar with one another. And last but not least, I think Aaron Glenn will do a good job of building a staff around him. He knows the importance of that in New Orleans. He's seen the importance of that, in Detroit. There's a lot of connections. Whenever you're a former player, whenever you've, been a coach and you've bounced around from, or been a part of a couple different organizations, of course you're going to have connections. Right, you can bring in a Dennis Allen to run the defense. You could bring in, potentially a Pete Carmichael to run the offense. There's so many different coaches that Aaron Glenn has known and slash worked with throughout the years. I think he'll be totally fine in assembling a quality staff. Here are the downsides with Aaron Glenn. Number one, what exactly is going to happen on the offensive side of the football? Is this going to be typical Jets, right? Rex Ryan, Todd Bowles, Robert Saleh, where you bring in someone and they just have zero input on the offensive side, and that's it. You just got to deal with it and hope that they find the next great offensive coordinator. That's obviously not ideal, right? The other massive question that I have with Aaron Glenn, he does not have head coaching experience. So we have an idea, we could assume things, we could put ourselves in hypothetical situations, but we don't really know how Aaron Glenn will handle adversity as a head coach of an NFL team in a big market with a lot of pressure. We just don't have that answer. Aaron Glenn could literally be the best coach of all time in that regard. He could be the worst coach in that regard. We just simply don't have that answer, and we won't have that answer until we actually see it happening or unfolding in front of us. So anyway, let me know your thoughts down below in the comment section on this. Man, tons of videos are going to be dropping today and, in the early part of this week here. I'm excited. Let me know your thoughts, and as always, go Jets.